Good evening, everyone, and welcome to the Council meeting for the 10th of August 2021, which I now declare open. Although members of the public can't join us in person tonight, our meetings remain open to the public via the live stream on our website, and I extend a warm welcome to all of you who are watching online. You'll notice that tonight's Council meeting is being streamed through Zoom in light of the current COVID-19 restrictions. We remind you to please be sure to check the Department of Health and Human Services website for up-to-date information and for COVID restrictions, and again encourage all those eligible to please get vaccinated. On behalf of Moonee Valley City Council, I respectfully acknowledge the traditional custodians of the land on which Moonee Valley is located, the Wurundjeri Woi-wurrung people of the Kulin Nation, and we pay respects to their spirits, ancestors, community members and elders past, present and emerging. We also extend this respect to other Aboriginal and Torres Strait Islander people. Councillors, item 3 on the agenda is apologies and leave of absences, and I have not received any for this evening. Item 4 is the confirmation of minutes. So councillors, I will seek a mover and seconder that the minutes from the council meeting held on Tuesday, the 27th of July 2021 be confirmed. Moved Councillor Sypek, seconded Councillor Tyson. Those in favour? That's carried unanimously. Item number 5 is declarations of conflict of interest, and I'll ask if any councillor has the conflict of interest in any item on the agenda this evening. Councillor Isaac.
Thanks, Mayor. I'd like to declare a general conflict of interest for item 13.1 for reasons previously disclosed to their CEO.
Thank you, Councillor Isa. Any other councillor with a conflict of interest this evening? There being none, we move on to presentations. And I will start by just making a few comments on Council's response at the Flemington Public Housing Estate over the past week. So Council's been doing some really good work over the past few days as we come together as a community to stop the spread of the Delta COVID-19 variant. 2 of Flemington's public housing estate towers are being directly impacted by the recent schools outbreak, with the added risk of being a Tier 1 or Tier 2 site, and like the rest of Melbourne, in lockdown. It has been 13 months since the last lockdown of the towers began, and I'm pleased to see all agencies are aware of the need to be respectful and to understand the trauma that many of our residents still feel from the past lockdowns. I would also like to acknowledge and say thanks to the state government and its agencies this evening for the meaningful partnership we have forged in less than a week for this particular outbreak. Of course, the start of these relationships and the connections that were made came out of last year's experience. Our council teams have helped lead the support, engagement and well-being of our residents. And since Saturday, we have provided and secured 420 culturally appropriate meals, 150 loaves of bread, 90 dozen eggs, along with halal meat, cheese, tuna, tinned tomatoes, vegetable oil and pasta, all of which was purchased from local supermarkets and businesses, while also being conscious of not depleting stocks for those also shopping for goods. Additional meals are being prepared or sourced on a daily basis. Our libraries have also arranged activity packs for children and parents in the towers to make their days a little brighter. In addition, 150 family care packs are on the way, including food and essential personal items. These items will be delivered in about 24 minutes at 7 o'clock tonight. I'm proud to say Moonee Valley City Council is the primary food relief for the Flemington housing estate and vulnerable residents in Ascot Vale. I would particularly like to thank all of the local suppliers who have stepped up to support members of our community at this critical time. Together as a community, we will get through this. Through our MV 2040 commitments, we're working to create a healthy Moonee Valley. Now, being part of being healthy is having access to fresh air and being able to exercise. And that's why on Sunday, we wrote to the state government urging them to find an innovative and safe solution that will allow isolated residents, particularly those in apartment blocks, to access fresh air and space to exercise. While we understand that isolation is critical to stopping the spread of COVID-19, we also need to make the time bearable for residents' physical and mental health. I commend council officers for this immediate advocacy action, recognising that all residents deserve to enjoy the highest level of health and wellbeing possible, including right now under our current lockdown conditions. I've not forgotten also about our broader business community. So this week I sent a personal invitation to local businesses to join a virtual meeting with me to discuss what we can do to better advocate for Moonee Valley businesses with the state and federal governments. I'm thoroughly looking forward to connecting with these businesses over the next few days, and at this stage have 35 businesses who'll be logging on for a chat tomorrow night. I want to also take a moment to recognise the community spirit that shines through Moonee Valley in times like these, as we see generosity, kindness, and an overall willingness to help. I would like to thank the large number of community groups, sporting clubs, and members of the community who have sent offers of help for our residents and who helped share the message to get tested after COVID-19 was detected in our wastewater supply. Sometimes it is the smallest gesture that can help others in our community, so thank you. Finally, I just want to thank everyone in our community who is doing the right thing, whether it is self-isolating, getting tested if they're symptomatic, or going and getting vaccinated. Remember, if you need support, please get in touch with council or your local ward councillors, and we will try to assist you wherever we can. Councillors, do we have any more presentations this evening? No, oh, Councillor Tyson.
Thanks, Mayor, and well said as well. I agree completely. And on your last point, I'd also like to share today that I got my first AstraZeneca vaccine, being eligible as of yesterday, and it was really great to see hundreds of our community members join me in that, and there was a really quick, speedy process. The staff were great. Thanks a lot to them. Go get vaccinated.
Thank you, Councillor Tyson. Any other councillor? Councillor Isa.
Thanks, Mayor, and I'd also like to echo your words of gratitude, and I mean, we're also impressed in the way Moonee Valley staff have responded to the needs of our community, and can't thank the staff enough for their efforts. I also just wanted to note quickly the ongoing toll that lockdowns are having on our Moonee Valley young people. Excuse me. Excuse me. This lockdown in particular, with its very abrupt beginning, it's had a big impact, I think, on many of our children and students in Moonee Valley. And particularly now our children and families in Flemington, students at Mount Alexander College. It's been so very, very hard for our kids. So I just wanted to give a shout out to the children, the school students, and people under 25 in Moonee Valley who may be struggling under COVID's random and repeated interruptions to normal life. It's not going to be forever, even though it seems interminable. And it's really important, I think, that as councillors and at council, we work really hard to support young people and their families through the pandemic and in the post-COVID future that we all look forward to. Thanks, Mayor.
Thank you, Councillor Isa. Any other councillors wish to make a presentation this evening? If not, we'll move to petitions and joint letters. Councillors, do we have any petitions or joint letters to be tabled this evening? There being none, we move to part 8, public question time, and we haven't received any questions from members of the community for tonight's meeting. Item 9 is reports from delegated committees, and there are no reports from delegated committees this evening. So we'll move to council reports. Item 10.1 is the seasonal sports ground and pavilion allocation policy review. Councillors, do I have a motion? Councillor Sharp.
Thank you, Mayor. Happy to move the officer's recommendation.
Thank you, Councillor Sharp. Do I have a seconder for that motion? Councillor Isa. Councillor Sharp, do you wish to speak to the motion?
Thank you, Mayor. I'll keep it brief because obviously we're going out to consultation on this proposed policy, but I'd like to thank all the officers involved behind the scenes on getting this to us. It's certainly been a big undertaking. It's a policy that has certainly needed review, or we haven't really had a policy. So in the past few years, you know, there's been a few hiccups. So now I trust that this policy review will certainly address all of those, and I'm very confident that the officers have a good handle on you know, what is needed to be reviewed. And obviously the future opportunities discussion paper was very detailed, and personally I think it's a great way forward, and a forward that we've really needed to move to as a council. So I'm certainly happy to go out to consultation on this, get further feedback, and get the final report endorsed back to us by next year. Yeah, leave it there. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Councillor Sharp. Councillor Isa, wish to speak to the motion?
Thanks, Mayor, and thanks, Councillor Sharp, for that introduction. I'll just speak to some of the key elements that we are asking members of our community to comment on. But first of all, I'd just like to really thank the contributors, the sports clubs and community members. I think there were about 185 community members who responded to online, and there were 37 sporting clubs who participated in one-on-ones and in group consultations. So it was terrific to have that degree of detailed feedback to this process. And as Councillor Sharp said, we haven't had a good solid policy, and this is a really terrific move forward to develop a solid policy. Now, some of the elements of this draft that we're looking for some feedback from, and feedback from participants on the field and off the field, as we move towards, I guess, having this policy sets out some clearer principles about what we're hoping we can achieve through our sports ground allocation policy. And they are about fairness and equity, access to facilities, environmental sustainability, and an element of sharing our resources as well. And that's sharing between clubs and sharing across the community. So this policy sets out some new criteria. There's mandatory, and then organisational related, and then criteria related to the particular reserves. And we're really interested in the responses of the community to those new criteria that, as I say, do aim towards inclusivity and looking at good governance of clubs and the way in which clubs work cooperatively with each other and with council. We've also, there's also a new option being put forward around extended seasons, and the consultation report sets out, of the discussion paper sets out some clearer sort of fleshes out what is meant by that. And I'm really hoping that our officers are able to communicate to people really clearly what's meant by that notion of extended seasons, and to then take on board feedback to that. And it does also involve sort of, I guess, a new role for council in taking a bit more of an active role in looking at how our grounds and pavilions can be best maximised across the community, and everyone is able to use those facilities to assist to participate in sport. And just in my last 10 seconds, a huge shout out to all the volunteers who do run our organised sport. We know COVID's put extra pressures on you all, and you do such an amazing job, and I'm glad Council's able to be here to support you in that work. Thanks, Mayor.
Thank you, Councillor Isa. Any other councillor wish to speak to this motion? No. If not, Councillor Sharp, wish to close? I'll put that to the vote. All those in favour? That's carried unanimously. Item 10.2 on the agenda is the Nursery Corner Draft Master Plan. Councillors, do I have a motion? Councillor, I saw Councillor Sharp's hand went up. Councillor Sharp.
Thank you, Mayor. Sorry, Councillor Adams. I couldn't see you on my screen. Happy to move the officer's recommendation for this one.
Thanks, Councillor Sharp. The seconder for that motion, Councillor Adams. Councillor Sharp, wish to speak to the motion?
Yep, again, I'll be brief because this is going to out to consultation too, but gee, it's taken a long time to get here, this consultation of Nursery Corner. So, or the consultation plan, or draft plan. So I'm very happy to be able to, or to see us going out to talk to the community about the ideas that have already been presented to us through various forums and feedback requests over the years. It has just taken on a little bit. So very happy to see it come before us tonight. Very happy to go out and hear further feedback from the committee, and very happy to see what great outcomes we can achieve there, because it's actually a really massive site. It's a huge parcel of land, so we can do wonders down there. So I look forward to seeing it. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Sharp. Councillor Adams, wish to speak to the motion?
Yes, thanks, Mayor. Just to quickly just summarise a few of the key points of the master plan. It's focused on the themes of water, ecology and play, and designed to provide amenities for the community, including pathways, a wetland, picnic facilities, a play space, senior fitness equipment, plantings and opportunities for gathering and learning. The draft master plan has been developed in consultation with stakeholders and is informed by the initial community consultation feedback held in October 2018. Thank you to everyone who submitted feedback during consultation. We had 71 written submissions, as well as comments from the on-site community session, emails, social media posts and letters, which is absolutely fantastic engagement. Officers also liaised with many external organisations and groups, including Wurundjeri Tribe Council, Strathmore North Primary School, Friends of Moonee Ponds Creek and the Moonee Valley Bicycle User Group, all of which shaped the draft design. I just also want to quickly address a few of the suggestions that are not feasible at the site. Sporting infrastructure was suggested, however, due to site constraints, topography, significant tree overlays and the chain of ponds plan that recommends a wetland at the site to treat local stormwater runoff, this is not appropriate. Toilet facilities were also requested, however, Nursery Corner Reserve is not considered an appropriate site for a public toilet because of the lack of visibility and natural surveillance at the site. There may be an opportunity to investigate modifying Strathmore Men's Shed to provide a public-facing toilet, which would be a separate process beyond the scope of the master plan, but thought it was important to mention. Lighting was another request, however, would not be considered appropriate as it may disrupt local fauna. I know there are many community groups with a keen interest in Nursery Corner who will be very pleased to see an implementation plan with indicative short, medium and long-term timing as part of the draft. And in this year's already adopted 21-22 budget, there is funding available for commencement of site cleanup to take place, which is great news to come out of the budget. Looking forward to seeing the next phase of consultation. Thanks.
Thank you, Councillor Adams. Any other councillor wish to speak to the motion? If Councillor Hodgson.
Thanks, Mayor. Look, I just wanted to quickly say that it's a really wonderful piece of work, a really great draft and an exciting one to be able to endorse, to go out and get feedback from the community. Obviously, a lot of contributions have been made, and I think the draft has really captured the key things that people have asked for in the area. It is a large site, a lot of it which has been inaccessible for a long time, but because of its sort of slightly non-rectangular geography and undulating area on the banks of the river there, it's a great candidate to become a really naturalised space and place to visit. So I think it's an exciting draft, and really congratulations to all of the people who have been involved, community members in engagement and officers in being able to draw all of that feedback together into what I think will be a really exciting area for our city.
Thank you, Councillor Hodgson. Any other councillor wish to speak to the motion? If not, Councillor Sharp, wish to close? I'll put that to the vote. All those in favour? That's carried unanimously. Item 10.3 is response to petition pedestrian safety issues along Mount Alexander Road between Addison Street and Montgomery Street, Moonee Ponds. Councillors, do I have a motion? Councillor Isa.
Sorry, Mayor, I'd like to move the officer's recommendation. I was so keen to do that.
Thank you, Councillor Isa. Do I have a seconder? Councillor Hodgson. Councillor Isa, do you wish to speak to the motion?
Thank you, Mayor. Look, I am keen to move the officer's recommendation, because it's not always that a petition does prompt a response from council so quickly, and also one that's I guess in indirect response to the request that was made. And look, I guess I'm speaking directly to Angus here, who is a local kid who had suffered horrific injuries at this particular location in Mount Alexander Road, and has spent many months in recuperating from that. And yet, after that tragedy, took it upon himself to organise a petition to make sure that no other children or adults suffered a similar situation, and collected over 100 names on a petition and submitted that to council earlier this year. And what that's then prompted is an investigation by council into this particular place at Mount Alexander Road, where we've identified that the number of pedestrians who cross do meet a threshold for a pedestrian operated signal. And that's because there is a tram stop there that people are trying to get to on either side of the road. Lots of residents obviously trying to get to the tram stop. And what has also become apparent is that the traffic treatment that was put in several years ago, a sort of a rubberised fluorescent treatment, presumably perhaps to stop U-turns in the area, has become a tripping hazard. And so this motion is about writing to Ben Carroll, who's fortunately a local MP for Moonee Valley, and he's the Road and Transport Safety Minister, and we're asking him to take note of both the tripping hazard that's been created there by that traffic treatment, and also the thresholds that this site meets to warrant a pedestrian operated signal. So Angus, thank you again for taking action, and it does show what, as I was just mentioning before, young people obviously can influence decisions and can influence action in our community, and this is an example of that coming to some point of fruition. Obviously, as being an arterial road, council's not able to put the intersection in ourselves, or the pedestrian operated signal ourselves. We do have to ask the state government to do that, but I'm sure that Ben Carroll will be listening to our concerns, and hopefully, Angus, we can keep you and others safe in this precinct in the future.
Thank you, Councillor Isa. Councillor Hodgson, wish to speak to the motion?
Mayor, just very briefly to echo my thanks to Angus and the petitioners, the people who signed the petition to bring this issue to our attention, and to officers for the investigations that they undertook. As Councillor Isa said, whilst we can't implement the solution ourselves, the evidence that our officers have collected will really assist in being able to take this to the state government and to Minister Carroll, and hopefully we can see some action on this very soon so that we don't see any more near fatal accidents.
Thank you, Councillor Hodgson. Any other councillor wish to speak to the motion? If not, Councillor Isa, wish to close? I'll put that to the vote. All those in favour? That's carried unanimously. Report 10.4 is the proposed road discontinuance at the rear of 70 Mascoma Street, Strathmore. Councillors, do I have a motion? Councillor Adams.
Thanks, Mayor. I'd like to move the officer's recommendation, please.
Thank you, Councillor Adams. Do I have a seconder? Councillor Sharp. Councillor Adams, do you wish to speak to the motion?
Thank you, Mayor. This resolution seeks to discontinue the unmade road that is not accessible to the public, located between Moonee Ponds Creek and Strathmore North Primary School at 70 Mascoma Street, Strathmore. Council received a report at the 14 July 2020 council meeting and resolved to commence statutory procedures to discontinue, to consider discontinuing the road. Further to this, the Department of Education and Training, DEET, has contacted Council in June 2021, offering to purchase the road at market value to formalise its occupancy over the land. However, this offer is subject to Council approval and discontinuing the road. By way of some background, the road has been exclusively occupied and maintained with uninterrupted use by the Strathmore North Primary School for more than 15 years. The proposal to discontinue the road is consistent with Council's road discontinuance and sale of land policy, and meets the criteria to discontinue a road if deemed surplus to Council and not required for municipal purposes. So basically, the road is considered no longer reasonably required for public use. I'd like to acknowledge the submissions made by the public following the public notice published on the 16th of July 2020. The submissions made were in relation to the consequence of the Department of Education building on the road, which is a current staff car park, and the impact of having staff parking in neighbouring streets. DEET has confirmed that the demolition and building works are not taking place on the road, and so the submissions are not relevant. In any case, I believe the decision to discontinue the road should be assessed independently of DEET's master plan and on-site car parking requirements at the school, and as such is the reason I am supporting the discontinuance. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Adams. Councillor Sharp, wish to speak to the motion?
Thank you, Mayor. Just quickly, just echoing everything Councillor Adams has said. This road at this location has certainly been enclosed within Strathmore North Primary School for, as mentioned, at least the last 15 years. It's certainly not a road that is used by the public. So when we look at these things and when these types of issues come to Council, we certainly have to abide by all our policies that guide us as to how we deal with these types of issues. Because it is a surplus land that is not accessible by the public or used by the public, our policy states that, a discontinuance procedure or statutory procedure is one that should be conducted by Council. So we began that last year. Echoing Councillor Adams also regarding the submitters, we did have a number of submitters, but we have to separate the two processes, and many of the submissions relied on or referred to what is potentially happening at the school, whereas it's really not applicable to the process that we're going through now, which is the sale or the discontinuance of the land, and then to support the officer's recommendations on this and complete the statutory process that council needs to abide by. So thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Sharp. Any other councillor wish to speak to the motion? If not, Councillor Adams wish to close. Put that to the vote. All those in favour? That's carried unanimously. Item 10.5 on the agenda is the revocation of the instrument of delegation to the Place Naming and Civic Recognition Delegated Committee. Councillors, do I have a motion? Councillor Byrne.
Thanks, Mayor. Happy to move the officer's recommendation.
Thank you, Councillor Byrne. A seconder for the motion, Councillor Hodgson. Councillor Byrne, do you wish to speak to the motion?
I will, Mayor, just briefly. Look, at the moment we've got a, this motion is to revoke the instrument of delegation to the Place Naming and Civic Recognition Delegated Committees effective from tonight, and also revoking the membership of the Place Naming and Civic Recognition Delegated Committee effective from tonight. So basically at the moment we've got a place naming committee which consists of one person from each ward, and they get to vote on things, but there is a bit of an administrative burden on that, and because we have fortnightly meetings, it just makes a lot of sense for decisions that were previously done in this committee to be done by the full group of council. So I don't think it's particularly contentious, and looking forward to things coming into the chamber.
Thank you, Councillor Byrne. Councillor Hodgson, wish to speak to the motion?
Thanks, Mayor. Just to add that, yes, while this definitely streamlines some of our internal processes, it also gives all councillors the opportunity to participate in the decisions that previously came before the Place Naming Committee. And they're, it's an interesting space, and it also provides an opportunity for members of our community who do tune into council meetings to be able to observe those decisions as well. So, a couple of additional benefits to this decision.
Thank you, Councillor Hodgson. Any other councillor wish to speak to the motion? Councillor Tyson.
Thanks, Mayor, and I'll be supporting this motion as well. I wasn't on the place naming committee, but I wasn't part of the decision to rename the East Keilor Leisure Centre to the Keilor East Leisure Centre, which there might be some strong feelings in the community about. So I'm glad that we're fixing it up.
Thank you, Councillor Tyson. Any other councillor wish to speak to the motion? Councillor Isa.
Thanks, Mayor. And look, I just wanted to thank those members of the committee for opening it up to all councillors and to the community, because names of places do have real meaning for people, and it's often apparent in the submissions that we receive on decisions around naming. And just with respect to the to Nursery Corner, I was really interested in the Wurundjeri Woiwurrung name that was put forward there, and I'm interested in whether we can have some further discussions with our elders and with the community about potentially renaming Nursery Corner to the Indigenous name. I haven't got it in front of me, but I think it was Ngawi Burrung, meaning tranquil mist, which is a really lovely name. So hopefully we might be able to find space to consider some more Indigenous names for important places in our community through this more open and community transparent process. Thanks.
Thanks, Councillor Isa. Any other councillor wish to speak to the motion? If not, Councillor Byrne wish to close. I'll put that to the vote. All those in favour? It's carried unanimously. Item 10.6 is the governance report. Councillors, do I have a motion? Councillor Isa.
I move the officer's recommendation. Thanks, Mayor.
Thank you, Councillor Isa. Do I have a seconder? Councillor Tyson. Councillor Isa, do you wish to speak to the motion?
This sort of motion really appeals to the nerd in me, sort of the governance nerd, and it's something that we sort of only became aware of recently, and hence the belated reporting of some of these particular meetings. There used to be in the Local Government Act a notion of assemblies of councillors that always had to be reported to council, and it was so that conflicts of interests can be properly recorded and reported whenever there's a group of councillors meeting to discuss council issues. And that's no longer part of the Local Government Act, but there's a new section in the new Act that does talk about particular meetings that aren't briefings and the like, and conflicts of interest need to still be declared at those meetings. And within our governance rules, there is still a clause that means that all those meetings need to be reported in this way to the community. And really it's so that we can be absolutely transparent about the topics that have been discussed as a councillor group, but most importantly so that the our community can be really sure that we've declared our conflicts as needed and as appropriate under the Act. So that's the nerdy background to this particular report, and also to explain why there's a bit of a delay in reporting for some of those meetings.
Thank you, Councillor Isa. Councillor Tyson, wish to speak to the motion?
Nothing really to add, Mayor, except it was a good trip down memory lane of the last 9 months of everything that we've been doing and all the training that us new councillors have been going through.
Thank you, Councillor Tyson. Any other councillor wish to speak to the motion? If not, Councillor Isa, you wish to close? I'll put that to the vote. All those in favour? That's carried unanimously. Item 10.7 is response to notice of motion 2020/15 National Redress Scheme. Councillors, do I have a motion? Councillor Isa?
I'm happy to move the officer's recommendation, Mayor.
Thank you, Councillor Isa. Do I have a seconder? Councillor Hodgson. Councillor Isa, do you wish to speak to the motion?
Just briefly, by way of explanation, this came out of a notice of motion. I think it was Councillor Marshall, or former Councillor Marshall's notice of motion last year, putting forward the proposal that council tighten up some of its grants criteria and other criteria to, I guess, emphasise the priority that's being placed on child safety. And the redress scheme is obviously the Commonwealth scheme that's been set up to make sure that institutions that have been acknowledge previous abuse of children and are part of that redress scheme, that system's been set up at the Commonwealth level. And the notice of motion was seeking whether we could make sure that all of our the institutions that applied for grants and the like at council were compliant with that redress scheme. So as the report notes, this is something that only a couple of councils in Victoria have done. I think Knox was the other council that's put this forward. So thanks to former Councillor Marshall for initiating this. And the officer's recommendation is to move this forward, noting that the permit process can't be included in that because of that's a statutory and slightly separate process. But part of the motion is also to endorse the promotion of council's commitment to the wellbeing and safety of children and young people. And it's of course, really important to all of us here that to emphasise that. And also, as part of the motion, there is agreeing to present this position to the Municipal Association of Victoria and to ALGA, presumably next year. Thanks, Mayor.
Thank you, Councillor Isa. Councillor Hodgson, do you wish to speak to the motion?
Thanks, Mayor. Just to echo Councillor Isa's thanks to the previous council and former Councillor Marshall for bringing this forward. I think it's really great to be a part of a council that is actively pursuing the best interests of child safety, and to note that as the report indicates, council officers' current investigations show that there aren't currently any institutions operating within Moonee Valley that have been named and have chosen not to participate. So I'm very glad that we're not in that situation, but also really pleased to be endorsing this position that should that situation change, we would not be supporting community organisations that haven't signed up to participate in the scheme.
Thank you, Councillor Hodgson. Any other councillor wish to speak to the motion? If not, Councillor Isa, you wish to close? I'll put that to the vote. All those in favour? It's carried unanimously. Item 10.8 is submission to Victorian Independent Remuneration Tribunal review of Mayor, Deputy Mayor and Councillor allowances. Councillors, do I have a motion? Councillor Isa?
Happy to move the officer's recommendation, Mayor.
Thank you, Councillor Isa. Do I have a seconder? Councillor Hodgson. Councillor Isa, do you wish to speak to the motion?
Thank you very much to officers for putting together this submission and for bringing it to council for us to have a look at and to put forward to the community, so community can have a look at it as well, and to send that off to the process that's underway. Councillors have normally been paid through a tiered system of payments that we then have to agree to each year, and it's always slightly awkward as councillors to vote on our own remuneration, but it's also an honest and transparent process, but it can get a little bit political as well. The new process that's being undertaken is that our remuneration will be decided by the Victorian Independent Remuneration Tribunal. So I'm very glad that we can have a bit of a more hands-off approach to that. But one of the really interesting things that's coming out in this process is that at the moment, councillors' wages or salary stipend is set on the assumption that we sit as sort of volunteers on a board. That's the comparison that's made. And there's I guess some thinking around whether that's the appropriate characterisation of councillors' work, or whether our work is more akin to a sort of a salaried position, and then what sort of salary that might appropriately then attract. And I think it is, I guess councillors work as hard as we choose to work. And I think that all 9 of us probably work really pretty hard on this particular council, but there's no one sort of checking our time clock, or, the political process judges our performance and judges our whether we're sufficiently committed to the role. But it is not always an accessible role to people for whom financial restraints might pose a particular issue, or they just can't take time out of their paid job to be a councillor. And so in all those barriers that might be there for people to be a councillor, and anyone should be able to put their hand up and be a councillor, if it's the remuneration or the not being able to, it's more the exchange, not being able to do your day job and therefore not being able to afford to be a councillor, that can perhaps become a real issue for people. So I'm looking forward to seeing what it is that this remuneration tribunal decides with respect to the way councillors' work is characterised, because I think that will have an impact then on the expectations that the community has of us, and the expectations that we also have of ourselves in our service to the community. So I think it's a really interesting question, and I'm very happy with the submission that officers have put together. I think they've detailed some of those debates and some of those real questions. So I look forward to seeing what decisions are made.
Thank you, Councillor Isa. Councillor Hodgson, wish to speak to the motion?
Mayor, just very briefly to echo Councillor Isa's thoughts and thanks for the work of the officers. I think we all want to see council running for council being open to, you know, people from any part of that section of our community, and for there to be no barriers. So the work that officers have put into this submission to, as Councillor Isa said, characterise the type of work and the commitment that is in today's world expected of councillors, I think will really assist the tribunal in making its determination going forward. So thank you.
Thanks, Councillor Hodgson. Any other councillor wish to speak to the motion? If not, Councillor Isa, wish to close? I'll put that to the vote. All those in favour? That's carried unanimously. Report 10.9 is a request for an additional council meeting. Councillors, do I have a motion? Councillor Byrne.
Thanks, Mayor. I'd like to move that, excuse me, sorry. The council resolves to hold an additional council meeting scheduled for Tuesday, the 31st of August 2021 at 12:30 p.m. and B, advertise the scheduled council meeting on council's website.
Thank you, Councillor Byrne. Do I have a seconder for that motion? Councillor Adams. Councillor Byrne, do you wish to speak to the motion?
Thanks, Mayor. So first of all, I'll touch on why we need another meeting. So council must endorse a council plan, municipal health and wellbeing plan, 21 to 25, and the 10-year financial plan by the 31st of October 2021 to meet legislative requirements. And in doing so, we obviously want to have enough time to be able to take things out to community consultation for people to be able to see the draft. Just the way the timing's worked out, it hasn't quite worked exactly. We don't want to wait until the following week, and it's not going to be quite ready the 2 weeks following or the week before. So we kind of just need to squeeze in an extra one on the Tuesday. And in terms of not being exactly what the officer's recommendation is, the officer's recommendation was to hold it at the 6:30 p.m, which is when we have most of, or just about all of our council meetings. And obviously with some prior discussion, we were discussing this as a council group. And I think that it's quite interesting actually off the back of the last debate that we just heard, that there does need to be certain flexibilities with council meetings. And the way that we've always had council meetings at that 6:30 time slot doesn't necessarily suit everyone. It doesn't necessarily suit all councillors. It doesn't necessarily suit all officers. It doesn't necessarily suit all members of the community who wish to watch. So mixing up when we actually have council meetings is possibly something that we can look at going forward. I think it's really important that we don't always look at what time we have to have a council meeting, not respecting different types of employment, whether it be paid employment or unpaid employment, whether it's the conventional, if you work during the day, we've got, you know, the conventional daytime, then meetings have to be at night, or, you know, because different people have different times of work now. People work during the day, people work during the night, split shifts, all sorts of things. So I think this is actually a really progressive step forward by council having a meeting during the day, and hopefully we see more of this because we are leaders of this community and we need to show our flexibility and in how we have meetings. Thanks.
Thank you, Councillor Byrne. Councillor Adams, wish to speak to the motion?
Nothing further to add, Mayor. Thanks, Councillor Byrne, for all your comments. I agree.
Thank you, Councillor Adams. Any other councillor wish to speak to the motion? Councillor Isa?
Oh, just a question actually, Mayor. I've just wondered, and I think I'm pretty sure I know the answer to this, but just wanting to check that we don't have to specify in the motion whether it will be in chambers or remotely. Under the current rules, I'm thinking that can just be decided as need be. We don't need to articulate that in the motion, do we?
I'll refer that through the CEO who is with us online. CEO, are you able to respond if we need to specify the location, or does day and time suffice?
Mayor, please allow me a few minutes to check the governance rules.
I've just got a response through from governance. Let me just pull that up. Location does not need to be confirmed. So thank you through the CEO through governance.
Thank you.
There we go. Thank you. Councillor Reiser, did you wish to speak to the motion?
All good.
No. Any other councillor wish to speak to the motion? If not, Councillor Byrne, do you wish to close?
Just briefly that in terms of flexibility, it is great to see that whilst there's flexibility to go into the chamber, well, obviously if we're in lockdown, we can't go into the chamber, but there's obviously flexibility now that some people could be in the chamber and some people could be online. So a lot has definitely changed in terms of flexibility of meetings, and we have to continue that way forward. Thanks.
Thank you, Councillor Byrne. I'll put that to the vote. All those in favour? That's carried unanimously. We move to item 11, which is notices of motion. We have one notice of motion listed tonight. So I will call on Councillor Byrne to present her notice of motion titled Notice of Motion 2021/24 Growth in Tennis Plan 2018.
Thank you, Mayor. I would like to move that Council resolves to request the Chief Executive Officer to provide a report to a future 2021 Council meeting reviewing the Growth in Tennis Plan 2018.
Thank you, Councillor Byrne. Do I have a seconder? Councillor Tyson. Councillor Byrne, do you wish to speak to your notice of motion?
Thank you, Mayor. I will forward this notice of motion because I think that it's really important in council that we don't let particular strategies or discussion papers, plans fall off and not to be reconsidered. Back in 2018, it could have even been 2017, I raised a notice of motion to say that we needed some sort of a plan going forward for tennis within our municipality, and what we got back in 2018 was a really good detailed 47-page strategy on tennis within the municipality, and it had lots of various different aspects to it, and it's a really good read for anyone who loves tennis and wants to know what's going on. In there, there's a big discussion about the court. There's also talk about the annual budget for infrastructure upgrades. We'll talk about solar panels on our tennis facilities. And I suppose why I'm calling on this is we do have a new council, so it's really good that all councillors are aware of this particular document, but also so that we can track exactly how we're going along with it, because now we're 3 years into this, we need to see whether it's through a traffic light system or whatever, however the officers want to produce this information back to us. I think we're fairly flexible with that, but it'll be really interesting to know how we are tracking along, because if we're off track, we need to get back on track, because we want to ensure that there's plenty of kids and adults and whatnot playing tennis. I'm mindful that we've got the new Montgomery tennis courts that will be upgraded, but I'm also mindful that there are potential closures of some tennis courts within the municipality, not on council land, and that's something that we'll just have to take into account when this when we get the review back. So we will hopefully this gets passed, and then we can obviously have more of a discussion going forward to ensure that tennis continues to grow within the municipality.
Thank you, Councillor Byrne. Councillor Tyson, wish to speak to the motion?
Thanks, Mayor. I'm happy to second this motion as a tragic of the game and a former pretty tragic player. I'm very, very much looking forward to rereading the strategy and giving it a review. So thanks.
Thank you, Councillor Tyson. Any other councillor wish to speak to the motion? If not, Councillor Byrne, wish to close? I'll put that to the vote. All those in favour? That's carried unanimously. Item 12 is urgent business. Councillors, do we have any items of urgent business? There being none, we'll move to item 13, which is confidential reports. We have one confidential report this evening. So councillors, I need a motion that the meeting be closed to members of the public in accordance with section 66(2) of the Local Government Act 2020 to allow for consideration of confidential information under the following section. It's section 3(1)(g), private commercial information being information provided by a business, commercial or financial undertaking that 2, if released, would unreasonably expose the business, commercial or financial undertaking to disadvantage as it contains private commercial information. A mover? Councillor Bedio, seconded Councillor Byrne. Put that to the vote. All those in favour? And that is carried. So this is where we say good night to those watching the meeting via live stream. We'll note as well, Councillor Isa has a conflict, so we'll drop out before the report is discussed. We thank you for your interest in tonight's meeting. Stay safe, and we'll see